There's a truth that many people overlook, especially when it comes to relationships. Presence can often be taken for granted. When someone is always there, always available, always showing up, it's easy for those around them to forget just how valuable that presence really is. It becomes something expected, something routine, something almost invisible. The very thing that should be cherished and celebrated begins to fade into the background of daily life. And that's where the danger lies. When you are constantly present, you give without pause, you invest without question, and you offer your energy and love without hesitation. But what happens when that presence is met with indifference or a lack of appreciation? When the person on the receiving end forgets to recognize the effort, the care, and the sacrifice that your presence embodies? This is a hard pill to swallow, but it's a reality many face. Presence is powerful, but it's vulnerable to being overlooked if it's not honored. Now, absence is a different story. Absence is loud. Absence is felt deeply because it disrupts the routine, breaks the pattern, and creates a void where once there was constant presence. It makes the person who was once indifferent sit up and take notice. The space you leave behind by stepping away is a mirror, reflecting what was always there, but never truly seen. It forces a reckoning. It forces recognition. When you choose to be absent, you're not just walking away physically. You're withdrawing your emotional availability, your energy, your support. And in doing so, you create a space where the true impact of your presence becomes undeniable. Suddenly, the small things you did, the moments you shared, the consistency you maintained, all those things that seemed so ordinary when you were there, take on new meaning. This is why absence can teach what presence never did. It wakes the other person up, it shakes them from complacency, and forces them to realize what they had all along but never appreciated. It's like turning off the lights to make someone see how bright the sun truly is. In presence, your light might have been dimmed by familiarity, but in absence, it shines unmistakably bright. But here's the deeper lesson. Absence doesn't just teach the other person, it teaches you as well. It teaches you the value of your own time and energy. It teaches you that love and respect must be mutual. It teaches you that being present for someone who doesn't see your worth isn't a sacrifice. It's a disservice to yourself. When you pull back, you reclaim your dignity and remind yourself that your presence is a gift, not an obligation. Too many people stay present in situations where their presence is ignored, hoping that somehow things will change. But real change only comes when absence is introduced. When the other person feels the gap and is motivated to either grow or lose what they took for granted. It's not about punishment, it's about clarity. It's about setting a standard that love must meet. So remember, your presence is valuable, but it can be invisible if it's always there. Your absence, on the other hand, will never be forgotten because it forces the truth to surface. It teaches respect, appreciation, and self-worth in ways that presence alone cannot. And when absence finally speaks, it demands that the lessons be heard loud and clear. That is why sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to step back, not out of anger or bitterness, but out of self-respect and wisdom. Because in your absence, the truth about your value will be revealed in ways your presence never could. Never underestimate the teaching power of your absence. When you are always there, when your presence is constant and unwavering, it can become so familiar that it loses its power. It becomes easy to overlook, easy to take for granted, but the moment you step away, the moment you remove yourself from the equation, that's when the true reality sets in. Absence has a way of opening eyes and shifting perspectives because it introduces a new space, one where things can no longer be ignored or dismissed. Imagine someone who has grown used to your presence, who has built a routine around it, who has come to expect your availability without question. While you were there, they may have failed to appreciate the effort you put in, the love you gave, the sacrifices you made. Presence, in that way, becomes a silent agreement, sometimes unspoken, that you'll always be there no matter what. But people don't always value what they don't have to fight for. They don't realize the depth of what they've been given until it's no longer within reach. When you choose to be absent, you force a pause in that complacency. You disrupt the expectation. Suddenly, there's a void, a silence where your voice used to be, a space where your actions once filled. It creates an awareness that wasn't there before. He begins to notice the little things, the warmth in your smile, the comfort in your presence, the stability you provided. These details, once invisible or ignored, now stand out starkly in your absence. This is not about playing games or trying to make someone jealous. It's about showing that your time, your energy, your love, and your presence are not infinite resources to be wasted. They are precious, and when they are no longer given freely, it makes the other person truly evaluate what they had. It's the absence that teaches him what your presence never did, because absence removes all the distractions, all the excuses, and all the complacency. There's something profound about space. When space is created by your absence, it invites reflection, it invites understanding, and often it invites regret. He begins to see what he missed when you were there, but he was too distracted or too comfortable to recognize. He starts to understand the value of what you offered, the peace you brought, and the love you shared. That recognition can be painful, but it is necessary for growth. It's important to remember that absence is a teacher, not a punishment. It's not about making someone suffer or feel guilty. It's about creating conditions for change. When you remove yourself, you set a standard. You say, "This is what I deserve." And in doing so, you remind him that your presence was a blessing, not a burden. This lesson is powerful because it shifts the responsibility back onto him. It forces him to look inward and ask, what did I do to deserve losing her? What do I need to change? Sometimes absence is the only way for a person to break free from old patterns and begin to appreciate what they had. It's a moment of clarity that presence alone couldn't create, because presence was always there to hide behind. At the same time, your absence strengthens you. It teaches you to value yourself, to hold your ground, and to understand your worth beyond someone else's validation. It shows you that you don't need to be constantly present to be powerful. Sometimes the greatest power lies in knowing when to walk away and allow absence to speak. So remember, your absence isn't just a gap, it's a message. It's a mirror reflecting back the love, respect, and attention that was once overlooked. And in that space, he learns what your presence never taught him, because sometimes the only way to be truly seen is to step away and let the silence do the talking. Your absence will teach him what your presence never did. Never forget that. When you're constantly there for someone, it's easy for them to avoid looking at the bigger picture. They get comfortable with your presence and sometimes fail to confront the real issues, the real gaps that exist between you two. But when you step back and create that absence, something shifts. Absence forces reflection. It forces a pause that's hard to ignore. Suddenly, the space you leave behind isn't just empty, it's filled with questions that demand answers. In presence, it's easy to gloss over problems, to sweep conflicts under the rug, or to distract with the noise of everyday life. But when you're no longer there, when your presence is missing, the silence becomes loud. The quiet forces him to face what he might have been avoiding. It forces him to reckon with his own shortcomings, his own failures, and the role he played in the breakdown or distance between you. Reflection is never comfortable. It's never easy. It requires honesty, vulnerability, and courage, but it's also necessary for growth. Without reflection, people remain stuck in the same patterns, repeating the same mistakes and failing to learn from what's right in front of them. Absence creates the conditions for that reflection because it removes the distraction of your presence and leaves only the truth behind. When he begins to reflect, he starts to see how his actions or inactions affected the relationship. He may realize how he took your love for granted, how he failed to communicate, how he didn't show up when it mattered most. That kind of self-examination can be painful, but it's also the first step toward real change. This reflection isn't just about regret or guilt, it's about awareness. It's about understanding what was missing and why it mattered. It's about recognizing that your presence was more than just physical, it was emotional, spiritual, and foundational. And when that presence is gone, the true weight of what you brought becomes clear. But reflection also opens the door for responsibility. It's one thing to recognize mistakes, it's another to take ownership of them. Absence forces him to look inward and ask, what can I do differently? How can I grow? How do I become worthy of having her presence again? Without that space created by absence, those questions might never be asked. And your absence gives him the opportunity to become a better man, not just for you, but for himself. It teaches him that relationships require effort, respect, and intentionality. It shows him that love isn't something to be taken lightly, nor is it something to be assumed. It's earned, maintained, and protected. And at the same time, your absence protects you. It shields you from being stuck in a cycle of disappointment and unappreciation. It creates a boundary, a necessary line that says, I will not be here for you unless you are willing to see what's missing and grow. That boundary is an act of self-respect and wisdom. So when you walk away, it's not just distance you create. It's a space for growth and reflection that presence never allowed. It's a chance for him to confront the truth about himself and the relationship. It's a chance for transformation, if he's willing to take it. And in the end, that reflection will either bring him back to you with a new understanding, or it will show you that your absence was the only lesson he needed to learn. Never underestimate the power of absence to make someone face what presence never could. There's a unique kind of clarity that absence brings, something presence can rarely provide. When you are constantly around someone, your energy, your words, your actions become part of their daily rhythm, like the background music they no longer consciously hear. Your presence becomes so familiar that it fades into the everyday, taken for granted, unnoticed. But when you step away, even for a moment, that familiar rhythm stops. Silence takes over. And in that silence, clarity is born. Absence removes the noise and distractions that often cloud judgment. When you're there, it's easy for someone to ignore the real state of things, to pretend that everything is fine even when it's not. But when you're gone, they are forced to face the truth, unfiltered and undeniable. It's like pulling back a curtain that was hiding the reality all along. The absence cuts through denial and forces a clearer, sharper look at what was there before. It's important to realize that clarity doesn't always come comfortably. Sometimes it arrives as a shock, a sudden awakening to what was hidden behind convenience or habit. He may suddenly see the gaps in the relationship, the times he didn't listen, the moments he failed to appreciate you fully. It's a sobering realization, but it's a necessary one. Without clarity, people stay stuck in illusions, living in a fog of misunderstanding and neglect. This clarity, sparked by your absence, helps him to understand not just what he's lost, but what he missed while you were present. It's the difference between seeing something with your eyes open and seeing it clearly for the first time. When you are present, your worth might have blended into the background. When you are absent, your value stands in stark relief against the emptiness you leave behind. Moreover, clarity born of absence opens the door to honest conversations, deeper understanding, and true growth. It challenges him to stop avoiding difficult questions and start facing reality head on. It's in this space that real change can happen. Not just promises or empty words, but transformation rooted in genuine understanding. But clarity doesn't just help him, it helps you as well. It allows you to see things without the haze of constant interaction, to assess the relationship with fresh eyes and a clear heart. Sometimes being absent is the most powerful way to protect your own peace and sanity, giving you the distance you need to decide what you truly deserve. And when clarity hits, it becomes impossible to settle for less than what you are worth. It becomes impossible for either of you to pretend that things are fine when they are not. Absence forces honesty, and honesty demands action. In that moment, he begins to see you as a person with needs, feelings, and boundaries, not just someone who is always available. He realizes that your presence wasn't something to be taken lightly, but a gift that deserved respect and care. That kind of clarity can change everything. So remember, your absence isn't just a space where silence lives. It's the place where clarity awakens. It's where illusions dissolve and truth stands tall. It's where both of you get the chance to see what really matters. And that is a powerful lesson no presence could ever teach. When you are always present, giving your time, attention, and love without pause, there's a risk that the other person stops truly valuing what you bring into their life. Your presence becomes expected, almost like an everyday commodity, rather than the precious gift it really is. But when you step away and create absence, you send a powerful message. Your presence is not to be taken for granted. In absence, the value of what you offered becomes clearer. It's like when something precious is missing. Only then do we realize how important it was. That absence forces him to recognize the depth of your contribution, the sacrifices you made, the patience you showed, and the love you gave. Suddenly, the things he overlooked or dismissed become glaringly obvious. People often don't value what they always have because the constant availability dulls appreciation. It's easy to assume that no matter what, you'll be there. But when you're not, the reality sinks in. Losing you is not an option. And that realization is where true appreciation begins. This process of recognizing value through absence is deeply tied to respect. When someone values you, they honor your time, your feelings, and your boundaries. But if those things are ignored or taken lightly, absence becomes the wake-up call. It challenges him to rethink how he treats you, to ask himself if he truly respects you or if he's been complacent in the relationship. It's not about punishment or revenge. Absence is not a game or a test. It's a boundary you set to protect yourself and your dignity. It's a way of saying, I am valuable, I deserve to be valued. And sometimes that lesson can only be learned when you're no longer available to be taken for granted. In this space, he starts to understand that your presence wasn't just about physical proximity, it was about emotional support, encouragement, loyalty, and trust. These are not things to be casually overlooked. They are the foundation of a strong relationship. Absence reveals what was truly lost when those things were ignored. At the same time, absence allows you to reconnect with your own value. When you stop being constantly available, you create the space to rediscover your self-worth and reclaim your power. You remember that your happiness and peace don't depend on someone else's recognition. They come from within. When he sees your absence, it forces a choice. Either rise to meet the respect and value you deserve, or continue down a path of neglect and loss. It's a moment of truth for both of you. Will he grow and appreciate, or will he lose something irreplaceable? Your absence is a lesson in value that no words or presence could ever teach. It is the silence that speaks louder than any conversation, the space where true respect is born. And that is why your absence will always teach him what your presence never did. There's a profound lesson hidden in the spaces you leave behind. The silence that follows your departure speaks louder than any argument or explanation ever could. When you remove yourself, when you step back and refuse to engage in the same patterns, it forces him to confront what he truly feels, beyond words or fleeting moments. Silence becomes a mirror reflecting the reality he might have ignored while you were there. In presence, communication is constant. Words flow, emotions spill out, sometimes heated, sometimes gentle, but often noise covers the truth. The hustle of daily life, the distractions, the defenses, all these can mask what's really going on inside a person's heart and mind. It's easy to talk, easy to fill the gaps with excuses or distractions, but silence strips all that away. It demands honesty, not just from him, but from the situation itself. Silence is uncomfortable. It unsettles the mind and stirs the soul. It presses against the walls we build to protect ourselves. When you go silent, you remove the option of avoidance. He can no longer escape the weight of his actions or the consequences of neglect, because the absence of your voice leaves no room for distraction or denial. This silence becomes a powerful teacher. It forces introspection. He begins to ask himself hard questions. Why is she silent? What did I do to cause this? What am I feeling now that the noise is gone? The silence becomes a space where feelings, long buried or ignored, surface with a force that can no longer be ignored. It's important to remember that silence is not about punishment or playing games. It's a boundary. a form of self-respect, a refusal to participate in toxic cycles. When you choose silence, you choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion. You allow space for healing, not just for yourself, but for him as well. In that silence, emotions become raw and real: guilt, regret, longing. These feelings rise like a tide that can't be held back. They break through the defenses he's built and demand attention. It's in this silence that he truly feels the absence of your presence, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. And sometimes silence speaks so loudly that it becomes impossible to ignore. It reveals the depth of what was lost, the moments wasted, and the love taken for granted. It strips away excuses and reveals the core truth of the relationship. Your silence, your absence, gives him the chance to reconnect with himself, to face his own shortcomings, and to realize what it means to truly lose someone who once meant everything. It's in this quiet space that growth begins. If he is willing to listen, not just with his ears, but with his heart. So never underestimate the power of going silent. Sometimes the most profound lessons come not from what is said, but from what is left unspoken. And in that silence, the truth waits patiently to be heard. This is the teaching your absence brings, a lesson that presence could never deliver. There is a profound truth in the idea that absence creates space, not just physical space, but emotional and mental space too. When you step away, you are not just removing yourself from the environment, you are creating a vacuum that demands to be filled. This emptiness becomes a powerful force, forcing him to confront what's really inside his heart and mind, what's been ignored or overlooked for far too long. When you are always present, your energy, your care, your support can be taken for granted. It becomes something expected, almost invisible, because it is always there. But when you pull back, the silence and distance you create make him realize what it feels like when those things are missing. That absence becomes the backdrop against which your value and influence are seen more clearly than ever before. It's like when a light goes out in a room. You don't notice how bright it was until the darkness arrives. Absence reveals truths that presence often hides because constant proximity dulls perception. Suddenly, he becomes aware of the emotional support you provided, the encouragement you gave, the stability you brought into his life. All those things that were just part of the background now shine with stark clarity. The space you create isn't empty, it's full of potential, the chance for him to grow, to reflect, to appreciate what he had without you constantly there to remind him. That space demands introspection. It forces him to ask questions about his own feelings, his actions, and what he truly wants moving forward. But space also means freedom, the freedom to think clearly without pressure, to understand emotions without distraction. When you're not there, he's left to grapple with the reality of the relationship on his own terms. This is where true understanding begins. It's uncomfortable but necessary. Growth rarely happens without some discomfort. At the same time, this space protects you. It allows you to breathe, to regain your strength, to reconnect with your own needs and desires. Sometimes we forget that our own well-being is just as important as teaching lessons to others. Creating distance is a way of honoring yourself, setting boundaries, and choosing peace over chaos. In that space, he can no longer hide behind excuses or distractions. He is forced to face the consequences of his neglect, the missed opportunities, and the reality that your presence was a gift he didn't fully appreciate. That realization can be painful, but it is also the beginning of transformation. Remember, space is not a void. It's a canvas for change. What he chooses to do with that space is up to him. He can fill it with regret and loss, or he can fill it with growth and respect. Your absence gives him the chance to decide what kind of person he wants to be. And through that space, he learns the lesson that your presence alone could never teach. This is the power of absence, the quiet force that moves mountains within the heart. Sometimes, when we are present in someone's life, we give and give, thinking that our constant presence is enough to show how much we care. We believe that our actions, our words, and our efforts will speak for themselves, and that over time, they will be appreciated. But there's a hard truth. Presence alone does not guarantee appreciation. Often it is in our absence that true understanding and respect are born. When you remove yourself from the picture, you create a powerful silence that speaks volumes. That silence can awaken something deep inside him, an awareness that was dulled by your constant availability. It's in that quiet that he starts to feel the weight of what you brought to his life. The support, the love, the consistency, all the things that he might have taken for granted suddenly become more real and more valuable. Presence forces reflection. It invites him to look back on what he had without the distractions of the present moment. When you are always there, it's easy for him to overlook the little things, to ignore the efforts you made, or to assume that your love is endless and unconditional, without need for acknowledgement. But when you are not there, he is left with memories and feelings that can no longer be pushed aside. In absence, feelings become clearer and more honest. He might realize the loneliness that replaced your presence, the quiet moments that lacked your laughter or support. It's a moment of reckoning. He must face the reality of the relationship without your comforting presence to soften the edges. This isn't about playing games or seeking revenge. It's about setting a boundary that honors your worth. By stepping away, you are saying, I am not here to be taken for granted. I am valuable, and my presence should be cherished, not ignored. That boundary, firm and clear, teaches a lesson that no amount of talking could. And while he grapples with that absence, you gain clarity too. You rediscover your own strength and self-worth. You see that your value isn't dependent on someone else's recognition. It is inherent. This self-awareness is powerful because it frees you from the cycle of giving without receiving. The truth is, sometimes people need space to realize what they had before it's too late. Your absence gives him the opportunity to grow, to appreciate, and to change. It is a chance for him to step up and show that he values you, not just with words, but with actions. And if he truly understands, that absence will transform into a deeper connection, a respect that could never have been built on presence alone, because it is absence that reveals the true worth of what was there all along. This is the lesson your absence teaches, that sometimes stepping back is the most powerful way to move forward. There is a moment when absence becomes more than just a physical space. It becomes a profound message. It is a silent declaration that says, I matter and I won't be overlooked. When you choose to step away, you are no longer just disappearing. You are setting a powerful boundary that commands respect. This kind of absence is not about running away or giving up. It is about taking control of your own value and demanding that it be recognized. Too often, presence can be mistaken for weakness. People assume that because you are always there, your love and care are endless, unshakable, and unconditional, no matter how they treat you. But there is strength in absence. It communicates that you are not a constant given, that your worth is not to be taken lightly. When you walk away, you show that your time and energy are precious and that they must be honored. This absence forces him to reconsider the role you played in his life. Without your presence, he has no choice but to face the reality of what your support meant. It's a chance for him to realize the depth of your influence and the gap your absence creates, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. He begins to understand that your presence was not just a convenience, but a foundation. What's remarkable is how absence demands accountability. When you are gone, there are no distractions, no quick apologies, no temporary fixes. Instead, there is only reflection and consequence. He must wrestle with the truth of his actions, his neglect, and the impact of his choices. Absence becomes a mirror, reflecting his true feelings and the damage done. This is where true growth begins, not in presence, where excuses can flow freely, but in absence, where reality cannot be avoided. He must decide whether to honor your absence by changing or to lose what he had forever. The silence you leave behind is louder than any argument or confrontation because it carries the weight of finality. At the same time, your absence is a gift to yourself. It's a statement that you will no longer accept less than you deserve. It's a reclaiming of your power, your dignity, and your peace. The step back allows you to heal, to grow, and to prepare for whatever comes next. whether it's reconciliation or a new path entirely. Absence is not empty, it is full of intention. It teaches that love is not about sacrifice alone, but about mutual respect and recognition. It demands that the other person see you not as a constant, but as a choice, one worth making every day. And in that choice, true value is revealed. This is the strength of absence, the quiet force that teaches respect when presence could not. There's a powerful lesson wrapped in the silence of absence, a lesson that no amount of words or presence could ever fully teach. When you remove yourself, you create a space where true reflection can take root, both for him and for you. This absence is not just about distance, it is about transformation, a chance to reset the dynamics and reveal what was hidden beneath the surface. When you are present, it's easy for the complexities of the relationship to become clouded by routine, by the noise of everyday life. You are there, showing up, supporting, giving, sometimes even when it's not fully appreciated. But your absence strips away that comfort, that familiarity, and forces everything into the light. It asks the question, what did you really mean to me? What did I fail to see? This space you create is like a mirror. It reflects back the true nature of the relationship, the value you brought, and the void you leave behind. It challenges him to face not just the loss of your presence, but the deeper loss of what that presence represented: love, respect, care, and commitment. Suddenly, those things become clear in ways they never were before, because absence sharpens the mind and opens the heart. For you, this absence is a journey inward. It's an opportunity to reconnect with your own worth outside of the relationship. When you're always giving, always present, it's easy to lose sight of yourself. Stepping back allows you to heal, to grow, and to remember that your value is not tied to someone else's recognition, but is inherent and unshakable. At the same time, this absence teaches patience and strength. It's not about rushing back or filling the void too soon. It's about allowing time and space for growth and understanding to happen naturally. You are not running away. You are creating the conditions for something better, whether that is renewed respect, deeper love, or the courage to walk away. He may feel the weight of your absence long before he understands its meaning. That's the point. Sometimes the lesson takes time to sink in. And in that time, he must wrestle with his own feelings, choices, and regrets. Absence is a quiet teacher, but it is relentless. It will not be ignored or forgotten. Through this process, both of you are given a chance to heal, to grow, and to redefine what the relationship means. Your absence is a powerful force, not a punishment, but a necessary space for truth to emerge. It breaks down illusions and builds up clarity. And when the silence speaks, it reveals what your presence never could. This is the power of stepping back. The greatest teacher is often what we leave unsaid.